On a chilly Monday afternoon, Mary Beth Tinker, John Tinker, and Christopher Eckhart triumphantly walked out of the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. They had just won their case against the Des Moines Independent Community School District. The court's decision has had a monumental impact on the education system today. The Tinkers and Eckhart had worn black armbands to school to protest the Vietnam War, which violated a school policy. All three teens were suspended and sent home for violating the announced ban and told not to return until they agreed not to wear the armbands. Their parents filed a suit against the school district for violating the students' First Amendment right to free speech. In their decision, the court said wearing the armbands was a form of symbolic speech, and therefore the school could have not suspended the students. They said that neither students nor teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. However, there was a caveat to this statement. Known as the Tinker Test, it says that schools may limit student speech if it could cause a material or substantial disruption to the educational function of the school or the rights of other students. The extent of the Tinker Test has been refined in further court cases, such as in Barnes v. Liberty High School. Barnes had worn a shirt to school that offended a teacher and student. The assistant principal told Barnes that he needed to cover the shirt, but he refused. Barnes was suspended and sued the school. The district court sided with Barnes and said that school officials may not suppress student speech based on the mere desire to avoid the discomfort and unpleasantness that always accompany an unpopular viewpoint. The shirt did not substantially disrupt the school day, thus not violating the Tinker Test, so wearing it in school was allowed.
This decision expanded the extent of freedom of speech for students. However, when the Tinker Test is violated, the extent of freedom of speech for students can be limited. For example, in Bethel School District number 403 versus Frazier, Frazier gave a speech full of sexual innuendos in a school assembly. He was suspended and sued the school. The Supreme Court upheld the suspension and said it was appropriate for the school to prohibit the use of vulgar and offensive language. They said Frazier's speech was inconsistent with the fundamental values of public school education. His speech was also insulting to teenage girl students and could be seriously damaging to a less mature audience. Since the speech had the potential to harm and interfered with the learning environment of the school, the speech was not protected by the First Amendment. Schools also hold a large role in determining free speech for students. For example, in Hazelwood School District versus Coolmere, a principal wanted to prohibit publication of 2 stories in a school newspaper. He feared the article's references could be inappropriate to some younger students, and the unnamed students from the articles could be identified from the text. The court said schools must be able to set high standards for student speech. The principal's actions were reasonably related to legitimate pedagogical concerns, and therefore he did not offend the First Amendment. Furthermore, student speech can be restricted when the speech is promoting illegal drug use, as was the decision in Morse versus Frederick.
One big area, though, that gives students more freedom of speech is speech said off campus. In its decision in Manahoy Area School District versus BL, the court said school officials could have a substantial interest in regulating certain kinds of off-campus conduct. However, they do not usually stand in loco parentis, or in place of the student's parents, for off-campus speech. In the case, a student had used profanity in a post about the school on Snapchat, which violated school rules. The student was suspended and sued the school. The court said that the speech did not cause substantial disruption or threaten harm to the rights of others, therefore not violating the Tinker Test. They said that the circumstances of the student's speech were the responsibility of her parents, not the schools, and so the suspension was unconstitutional. Ultimately, students have less freedom of speech than adults. On campus and off campus, students have free speech unless the speech causes material and substantial disruption to the discipline and educational function of the school. Also, on campus, lewd, vulgar, and offensive speech and speech promoting the illegal use of drugs is not protected for students. Furthermore, schools have the ability to set high standards for speech set on campus and can restrict speech if the school has a legitimate pedagogical concern. Students must be mindful that their speech does not disrupt the school learning environment. The government must decide whether a school has gone too far when the school restricts speech for students and correct it. Free speech is the bedrock of democracy. Even with these restrictions, students have the power to make massive change with their speech.